back in the garage today again. Sorry it's been a while since I've uploaded a video. After Drift Masters I had the car on the hoist and there wasn't really much to show you, just checking over things, making sure nothing had fallen off. So today we're looking at accumulators. I had a request to do an install video on my accumulator, so this is how mine is set up. I've got it sitting at the back of the car, and the main reason you want an accumulator is because when you're drifting, the oil sloshes around so much that sometimes you'll get low oil pressure on a big turn, and low oil pressure means a lot of damage to the engine. So the accumulator actually has oil that is pressurized, and when the engine drops in pressure, that pressurized oil is pushed into the engine. Now it only helps for a few seconds. Once the oil is out of the accumulator, there's no more oil to have. So it's good to have another backup strategy, either oil pressure light or oil pressure sensor on the ECU, so that the engine cuts down. This is just a fail safe for those little moments where you lose oil pressure. It can be a pretty expensive process, so I'm going to show you all the part numbers and the cost of every part of the installation. So this is how my engine first started off. I've got the outlet on the filter block going to the filter, and then to the cooler, and then back into the engine. So what I had to do was work out a way to tap into this inside of the engine. So I put in a T-piece, and this T-piece goes all the way up to where the accumulator is sitting in the back of my car. Now you can either put the accumulator in the boot of the car, which I've done, which keeps it away from the cabin. I did that because I didn't really feel like having 70 psi of hot oil right behind me inside the cabin, so it's safe in the boot of the car. And then on the front of the accumulator we've got the manual valve, and then attached to that is the electric solenoid. So from there, the oil is able to go from the engine to the accumulator, and from the accumulator to the engine. Now the danger here is you don't want oil coming down backwards into the cooler. So then we need a one-way valve to stop anything going backwards. And that's basically it. From there it's just the wiring from the solenoid, which has to go to the ECU in my case. I'll just try and get the camera down into the engine bay so you can see the lines. It's very dirty down there, so don't judge me. So here you can see I've got the oil filter block with the line on the left going to my oil filter, remote oil filter and oil cooler, and the T junction on the right, that line on the right goes to the rear of the car for the accumulator, and the left hand side goes to the other side of the oil cooler. There are two main methods of activating the accumulator. One of them is after you start the car, you can open the manual valve and the oil pressure will fill the accumulator, and then when the oil pressure drops in the engine, the pressure that's in the accumulator will then be pumped into the engine. You can also do the same method via an electronic switch in the cabin, but the way this works is if the engine has low oil pressure, it just dumps the oil in whenever it wants to, and the oil pressure might drop when you pull up to the start line, or the oil pressure might drop when the voltage goes down when you are changing gears. So it's not the best method. It does work, but it's not ideal. The other method is controlling it through the ECU or through an oil pressure sensor. So mine is set up through the Link ECU, and the Link ECU has a table that decides when the oil pressure is too low compared to the RPM, and it dumps in a little bit of pressure when it needs. It doesn't dump the whole amount, it dumps just a little bit at a time so that the pressure stays up. What you're looking at here is a playback of one of my runs from Drift Masters, and the table is showing whenever the pointer is going near the 100 squares, that's when the accumulator is kicking in. So when the revs are quite high and the pressure is low, the accumulator is dumping little bits of pressure to maintain a safe level. I don't claim to know everything about this setup and how it all works, but Hopefully that explains a little bit about my setup. And if you have any questions, just ask me in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. Finally, now we're just getting the car ready for V8 Supercars. The car will be down there on display all weekend. So if you're down at the V8 Supercars at Tailem Bend Motorsport Park on Saturday and Sunday, come and say hi and check out the car. See you then.